has just been released. However, there are some general items of guidance that have been given to us on ways that we can spend it. Of course, it can be spent as response to the pandemic. So if there are things that are directly related to our response to the pandemic, we can do that. But then there are some other specific things that were noted in the legislation, including water infrastructure, sewer infrastructure, broadband infrastructure. We traditionally don't have many needs as a county organization in those areas, so we are looking at other potential needs. I have put the word out to all of the department heads to think about, brainstorm, and provide recommendations and suggestions for possible ideas. But I'd like to do the same thing for all of you and ask all of you to think about potential needs. $25 million sounds like a lot of money, but when it comes to public projects, that money can go pretty quickly. We do suspect that the guidance may be loosened some, because that's what happened with the CARES Act. Initially, the guidance was not as clear and interpreted a little more strictly, but as time went on, the guidance was loosened, and we were given more leeway and even more time to spend it. So we hope that happens with this one, which would give us more opportunities. Another thing that was possible last time was what was referred to as supplanting, where we used the funds for things that we were planning to spend money on anyways, which then freed up general fund dollars or other funds for us to use with a lot more flexibility. We've thought about that, looked at that. We haven't identified a way to do that yet, because the public safety spending, where the county used most of that last time, is not an allowed use this time. So primarily, I think the point that I'd like to make this evening is that I'd love for all of you to just start thinking about potential uses. We've got a few years to do this, but if we are going to use it on infrastructure projects, we probably need to move pretty quickly, because infrastructure projects tend to take a little while. So I'd be happy to talk to any of you if you have questions about that or ideas, and love to take those ideas and add them to our project list. But my plan is that we will bring that through the budget process. We'll put this money into the budget. It'll be approved similar to our other expenditures that we make here in the county. A couple of other items I just wanted to report on this evening as part of my report. Some of our staff took a tour today of our Emergency Operations Center at the Sheriff's Office, and it looks great. They've made some recent upgrades there and helped us to be better prepared for emergencies. I just want to thank the staff at the Emergency Operations Center, especially Will Lusk, our emergency manager, for his hard work in getting that up and running. I know he's planning to do some training with the council later in the year to help familiarize you with that process and that facility. I also want to thank our fire chief. He took me yesterday, and we went on a tour of our fire stations around the entire county. And I also want to thank all of the cities who partner with us on fire protection, which is almost all of them. And I think it's an extremely efficient system we have set up for fire protection in our county, where we provide that protection in partnership with the cities in each of the areas of the county where they cover unincorporated areas for us, and we provide them resources that help them to cover their city. So I think we're in really good hands with our fire chief and the partnerships that we have going with our cities around the county. We had a meeting last night of the Cache Metropolitan Planning Organization, and that organization receives federal funds for transportation projects. We have received approximately $13 million in funds in recent years, and unfortunately those federal funds are not really easy to spend because of all the federal strings attached to those funds. So we had an opportunity to trade those funds to UDOT, so UDOT could use those dollars for a project they were already doing that was already federalized. Of course, they don't give us back $13 million, but they gave us over $9 million, about $9.5 million back. And that's actually really helpful for us, because now we have those funds available and we can use them without all those federal strings attached. So the CMPO is planning to make those funds available. There's a little bit more research and study and review that's going to be done. But the two primary projects that are being looked at right now to use those dollars on are 100 West in Logan, just south of here to bring it over the river, and then Wolfpack Way, which is 200 east from approximately the area of Green Canyon High School up to Hyde Park Lane. So about 3100 north up to Hyde Park Lane is the next segment that is being looked at for funding with those dollars. So there's a technical advisory committee that will be reviewing those projects and the funding recommendations, but it's likely that the CMPO will be providing funding to complete both of those projects soon, which will be good for our traffic situation. Just another update on a public works issue. Our public works department has been improving Birch Canyon just east of Smithfield. It's a county road, it's a dirt road, but it was in really poor shape. At the request of some people in Smithfield City, we looked at it and we've been making improvements there. There was initially some concern from residents in the area, which is why I want to make sure you all know about it in case you hear from residents in the area who are concerned about the project. I think the concerns were primarily related to the impact on the natural surroundings there. And there was an area at the bottom where it looked, at the bottom of the canyon, where it looked like it was going to be a really heavy impact on the road and the environment there. But that's just because there's a plan to make kind of a parking area and a trailhead, and that was on private property where that was done. But we've met with citizens out there, and so far everybody we've met with, it sounds like they're pleased with the explanation that they've been given about the road. And I went out with our Public Works Director last week, and we drove the entire length and saw the status of the project. And it's a good project, and it'll be a good improvement for the area. But I wanted to make sure you're all aware of it in case you hear concerns from residents. Please feel free to direct them to Matt Phillips, our Public Works Director, and he can explain to them what the project includes. Essentially what we're doing is smoothing out the road, improving some of the spots on the edge where it's falling off, where there are safety issues, and widening it a little bit, just enough to make it safe, but not so much that there's too much of an impact on the natural areas off to the side. We are working with biologists on that as well to make sure that we're sensitive to those impacts. I went down to the legislature last Wednesday. There was a special session of the legislature last Wednesday at which they, among other things, discussed their ARPA funds that they are receiving. That was really the primary reason for me going and attending their session, was to make sure that we were aware of and involved in the process of their distribution of their ARPA funds. And their plan at this point is they are distributing those funds to various state departments and will allow those departments to work with municipalities and counties on grants for those funds. So for example, they're setting aside $100 million this year that could be used for wastewater projects, and then $100 million next year for that. And there'll be a competitive process for us to pursue along with other agencies if we'd like to request those funds from the state, from their ARPA funds. So we'll stay engaged with that process and work to identify opportunities for us to use those funds in our county if there are opportunities for us to apply for grants in the future. And then finally, on my report this evening, just want to let you know, I will be meeting the end of this week with the U.S. Department of Forestry. And if you have any concerns related to the forest, I know a large portion of our county is on Forest Service lands, or Forest Service lands are on a large portion of our county. And I have a couple of items that I'll be discussing with them at that meeting, but if you have other concerns that you'd like me to bring to that meeting, I'll be doing that on this Friday, so please let me know about those. I'd be happy to bring those up. One of the top areas of concern that I would like to bring up is the topic of cell towers in Logan Canyon. As you're probably aware, there's no cell service in Logan Canyon. From right after you enter the canyon until you get to the top, there's really very minimal service just at the ends. And I'd like to see that changed. UDOT is willing to provide that, to provide towers through there as part of a project they are working on to put a fiber line, a fiber optic line through the canyon. But unfortunately, I've heard that the Forest Service has not been supportive of that project at this point. So that's one of the primary things I plan to discuss with them. Other than that, if there are a couple trail issues, access, parking issues, things like that, that I'll be talking to them about. But if you have any other ones, please let me know. And that concludes my report this evening. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Executive Zook, I'd like to make a comment. When you meet with the Forest Service, one of the challenges that we have here in Cache County is, of course, the roads in the Forest Service are usually pretty poorly maintained because of funding. But one disadvantage we've got is the district is over both the Ogden area, whereas is our area, and we've got twice as many mountain roads as what Ogden has, but the funding is split down the middle. So, you know, if you want to bring up something that would be very helpful for Cache County is to have that split on miles of road, not so much as two districts cutting it in half.
Okay,
so bring that up.
I will, thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you, Executive Zook. Okay, we will now move to item number 7, Board of Equalization, and we need a motion to go into Board of Equalization.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to go into Board of Equalization. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the first thing there for our discussion and determination is the Grow and Multiply Ministry. And Diana Schaefer, would you like to speak to that? And then I know we also have Kathleen Howell here as well. And John Luthi.
Did we have any specific questions, or would you just like me to go with a broad overview?
If you could give a broad overview, I think that would be helpful.
Okay, so our recommendation was a denial for the Grow and Multiply Church. And the reasoning behind that is I'd like to speak first to the hierarchy of law. You'll find that on page 6, I believe, where it's federal, followed by state statute and rule, followed by local law. If you look to page 168 and 169 of your packet, I have included the statute. And the part that I find problematic is on page 169. So this is statute, Utah State Statute 59-1101, paragraph 1G. Small I, which is the definition of a nonprofit entity. And talks about organization dissolution, and when we get down to the large letter D, it says for which none of the net earnings or donations made to the entity inure to the benefit of private shareholders or other individuals. And this is as the private inurement standard has been interpreted under section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. So if we move further down in the packet, the very last part of your packet, starting on page 173, I've included, not to skip over the rule that's on page 172, which the entity is trying to stand on, saying that they are a parsonage. My contention is that they first have to meet federal and state statute before they can qualify under a rule that is subservient to that law. So beginning on page 173 of your packet, we go into some 501c3 requirements for the IRS. The organization church, which did show their parent organization or who they pay their $25 monthly fee to, which is Missionary Church International, which they show up on an exempt search with the IRS. The next page is I'd clicked on that. They pay them $25 a month and $125 annually to belong to the Missionary Church International to be an affiliate. And by being an affiliate, they are able to use what they call a GEN number, which is a group exempt number. Now, this doesn't give them formal recognition as a 501c3 when you read through IRS code. The GEN number is the central organization holds the letter, and then the subordinate units covered by the group exemption are able to receive tax deductible contributions, even though they are not separately listed. So when we search, we don't find the Grow and Multiply Church. And then on page 177, this is publication 557. And this is referred to in, if you look at page 39, this was a letter to the Grow and Multiply Church from the IRS saying, here's your employer identification number. However, this is not 501c3 status. In order to do that, you have to refer to publication 557, which I've included the pertinent page here in your packet at 177, saying that they have to fill out a form 1023. When that form 1023 goes to the IRS, it's then reviewed by a specialized agent, for private interment and things like that to be formally recognized for 501c3 status. So like I say, with the GEN number, they can accept taxable deductions. They can't accept donations that are tax deductible, but they're not formally recognized by the IRS. And this is, again, shown to us because when you look at their tax return that they filed Form 1040, which is an individual return showing the church on the Schedule C, which is your business profit and loss. If they had 501c3, the IRS would have directed them to file a 990. So then moving along to that, so I say I'm recommending we follow that hierarchy, federal and then state statute. If they meet both of those, then we can apply that rule. Then we move on to a discussion of the private interment, which is in the statute, and also private benefit. So starting on page 179, I did some really fun reading of some technical documents from the IRS regarding private benefit. That's starting on 179, and this is a broader concept, private benefit, that there's a lot of court findings on that. And private interment starts on page 199, and that is a smaller subset of private benefit. So on 179, it says it has to be organized and operated exclusively. Right there, if you're with me on 179, I'm looking at paragraph 2, talking about the organization operated exclusively for either religious, charitable, scientific, or other specified purposes that are much broader than those that we have at the county level, of course. So they're saying that this broader concept of private benefit has to be addressed and judged by a determination specialist in processing the Form 1023 applications for the Section 501c3 exemption. And that is the second to the last paragraph on 179. If you turn the page to 180, it talks about close control. And if the facts are, and by control, we're then talking about the board of directors. Now, in this case, we have 5 members on the board of directors. 4 of them are family members. 1 is a church member. They're saying, in discovering these facts, if it's controlled by a relatively small group or a class served by the organization being narrowly drawn, whether it's related persons or not, then because of this potential for abuse, it requires a very clear demonstration that these private interests will not be served. And then they have a cute little case there for you, the Bubbling Well Church of Universal Love, where they were denied because of that close association on the control. And then if we go to 198, That's just a little definition of private benefit versus private interment, and also as a divider between the two technical excerpts that I had included for you. And then starting on 199, we go to the narrower focus of interment, where there is a specific prohibition against private interment at both at the federal and the state level. And then skipping to 203, there is, I just wanted to point out that they're not marked in that. It was pretty lengthy in April when I had submitted it for the first time. I hadn't had a chance to review the whole thing. So, second paragraph, Founding Church of Scientology, and also the Alive Fellowship of Harmonious Living. And the reason that I really liked these excerpts for you is that there were a lot of religious examples for you to compare to our current case. But they're saying that the common factual thread that's running through these cases where the interment has been found is that the individual stands in a relationship with the organization which offers the opportunity to make use of the organization's income or assets for personal gain. So there's another People of God community, and these on those pages. So then let's skip over to the bottom of page 207, where it says a little interment goes a long way. Turning the page to 208, even a small amount of private interment is fatal to this exemption. If the interment can result from an insider receiving a little benefit, it follows that interment must result when the insider receives virtually all of the benefit of the organization's operations. And then it goes through a few more little case studies, Hoffer and the Bethel Ministries, and a few more, again, the Alive Fellowship of Harmonious Living. Closing again at the end of page 208 with, again, even a minimal amount of interment can result in the disqualification of this exempt status. On 209, second paragraph, it's saying all regulations are placing the burden of proof on the organization, much as it is at the local level where that burden of proof lies with the applicant. And a few more. ABC Church, the Nursing Church. When we go to 210, it talks about operational tests and primary activities, which I covered in the determination letter that is the first 3 or 4 pages of your packet. So the Church of Scientology, that case study is on 211, where they were revoked because of a very small amount of interment, where he had spent money on their accounts, and then he had, I believe, paid it back, but they still revoked their exemption. So I think that I will just end with that, unless you have specific questions on those IRS cases, and then go to the facts of this case as far as the private interment. So they have included for us a tax return and bank statements from all of 2020 and March of 2021. And as I reviewed through that, I thought I would just give you a quick listing of things to me that seemed to trigger private interment. So looking at the first, they had given us March of 2021 first. And we see that they're spending on the expense side with Smith's and Dollar Tree and Sam's Club and Walmart and Ross. We have a Discover card and a Chase card that throughout the documents, they're making payments on these credit cards, but we never see those expenses and what they are. Gas cards, their insurance, and then their payments to the TCMI Church and Questar. So to me, a lot of those could be personal expenses. Why does the church need to go to Ross's? I would question that. We also, on that month, see them making a payment to Memphis Light Gas and Water and 2 different health payments, United Health and Humana Health, and Red Lobster and Wendy's and Sam's and Macy's and Disney Plus. That is all in just 1 month. So I didn't go through all 12 months, but I did look through the first quarter of 2020. For 2020, they did not disclose. They disclosed their Chase, checking, and savings. Again, they did not give us any information on their Discover card or their Wells Fargo checking and savings. So we're looking just at the Chase then for January of 2020. We see that we have expenses to Walmart, Sally Beauty, Walmart, Dollar Tree, withdrawals of cash from an ATM for $520, visit to Logan Community Health, Hiram Community Health. And within the IRS cases, there were some that were disallowed for insurance payments specifically. So again, I would submit that perhaps puts enough, probable doubt on whether that is a church or a personal expense. In February of 2020, Walgreens, Dollar Tree, Big Lots, Sam, Walmart, and Dunkin' Donuts. March, let's not go. So I'm like, so there we've gone over just a couple of months, and that pattern repeats itself. But I would submit to the council that there's enough doubt as far as the private interment that we should deny this case.
Have any questions for Diana?
You've really researched it.
Interesting case study. I tried to summarize, but it's a pretty huge case.
On the tax filings, the 1040, was that only done 1 year, or how many years do we know?
They only submitted the 1 year for 2020 to us, and it was under their individual name on a 1040 with a Schedule C.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Diana. We'll go to John, Attorney John Luthi. Diana, thanks for your work on that.
Yep.
The Attorney's Office and Auditor's Office have been in some discussion on this one for some time, and we've not had a chance to talk recently, so Diana may not know, but I'm concurring in the recommendation, but would like to provide just a little bit of context to our concurring. The Grow and Multiply Church, as I have looked at their documents, they have 501c3 status. The Missionary Church International has a group exemption they have 501c3, and they have a group exemption that allows them to give the same status to their affiliates. The IRS refers bodies like you to the parent entity for verification of that. We've received that verification in the last couple of weeks, that the Grow and Multiply remains in good standing with the parent organization and therefore has 501c3 status. Grow and Multiply is applying for the exemption on that home as a parsonage. And the Utah law on parsonages are you've got to have 501c3 status, which our office concludes that they have. It isn't them themselves, admittedly, but it is through this mechanism, which is recognized by the IRS to help the IRS and help groups like this, so that where you don't, for example, have an LDS church and every ward is part of the same entity, but you have a sponsoring church who then sponsors other churches, and the exemption, the 501c3 status is given through the group exemption. They qualify. The building is occupied only by persons whose full-time efforts are devoted to the religious organization and the immediate families of such persons. I think that we all have concluded that Mr. and Mrs. Gutierrez are the only ones that live there, and that both of them spend their full-time efforts as either a pastor or missionary. The third requirement is that the religious organization, and not the individuals who occupy the premises, pay all the payments, utilities, insurance, repairs, and other costs and expenses related to the care and maintenance of the premises and facilities. From the documents I've seen, which are the same ones that the auditor's office has seen, it looks like the church is making the mortgage payment, the insurance payments, the utility payments on the home. So when you have a church, a group, a congregation in a community who says we will support the church with donations, and we will provide the pastor with a salary, and we will provide the pastor with a parsonage to live in, that's the purpose of this exemption. And they have met each of those qualifications. The difficulty is that as you look through their financial statements and their bank documents, the financial statement indicates revenues of a certain amount, and yet the bank statements show more deposits than they're reporting as revenue. And the financial statement shows expenditures of a certain amount, and yet the expenditures out of the bank account exceed that amount that they're showing in the financial statement. Having met with the Gutierrezes, I think they are making a good faith effort to be a church that meets all of these qualifications, and that they've got a parsonage. We've got members of our community who are members of their faith, who have chosen to support this pastor with a modest salary and a parsonage. And yet it's their burden to prove that not only do they have 501c3 status, but that they are maintaining that status in the way they operate. And given the discrepancy between their financial statement and the deposits and expenditures in the bank account, I don't think they've met that burden, which is theirs. And it's hard to prove a negative, and yet that's what the law asks churches to do, prove that there is no private interment, that you're not, as the donations come in, you can get a reasonable salary, you can get a parsonage, but you can't then take on, in addition to that, be pocketing donation money. And that's what, but it's their burden to prove that negative, that we aren't. Given the documents, we concur that they haven't met that burden of showing that maybe there isn't some of the donation money going for personal expenses in addition to their salary. I wouldn't be surprised if this were appealed and they are given an opportunity to explain their finances more, that maybe they could meet that burden. Perhaps they can, they haven't yet. That's our position.
Can I ask one question, John? So let's just say, let's make it a little bit cleaner. You've got a Methodist church, Bayonne Home, the pastor's in that church, and his wife works at another job, or is self-employed. Would that still be considered tax exempt then at that point, even though the income to the pastor and his wife exceed what they're getting from the church?
As long as it's not coming from the church, that they're getting money that they're not working for the church for. But it says that the building, meaning the home, the parsonage, is occupied only by persons whose full-time efforts are devoted to the religious organization and the immediate families of such persons. So if you've got a pastor working full-time for the church, and his wife is working as a nurse or for Chick-fil-A or whoever it might be, under the law, it still qualifies if they're an immediate family member. The Bubbling Water Church or Bubbling Well Church, that's a poster child of what you don't want to see, where there was a church, I believe in Florida in that case, not in Utah, and they had a Christmas service, an Easter service, performed one marriage, and did a few burials. during the year, and this was in 1977, and in 1977, they've got a $20,000 allowance for a home plus $17,000 allowance for travel or such things. Clearly, they were getting much more money than the services they were performing as a pastor. And that's where the IRS said, no, you can't just set something up to be pocketing money and call it nonprofit. You can get a salary as a pastor. You can have a parsonage. You can't get beyond that reasonable salary and parsonage. And here, the Gutierrezes probably haven't met that burden to show that they are.
Thank you, John. Assessor Howell, do you have anything to add?
They've done a great job covering
Okay.
that.
Thank you. Thank you both. Council, do you have a discussion on this item? Well, can I say something? I can't make a motion, but I wanted to let you know what concerns me about approving this as a church. Not only the things that Diana presented to us, there's hundreds of dollars in transactions that appear to be expenses that were at grocery stores, discount stores, pet stores, auto dealership, craft store, gas station, doctor's office, that don't appear to be church-related. There was also, I found one, there was a driver's license renewal that they said the church should pay for. There was also a payment of over $500 to a family member who's also a member of the board. It was not listed as payroll, it was just a payment out to that member. Their bylaws also, which according to what I read and what Diana provided for us, need to have a clear demonstration that private interests won't be served. Their board is 4/5 the family, which means they have a majority. The majority can change their bylaws. It can change also and decide once that church has a dissolution where their assets go. That's up to that board, which has a majority of family members. It also calls for a conflict of interest policy in their bylaws, but there wasn't any provided. So those are some of the reasons that I have concerns about the exclusivity of religious business being done by this church. I think that there's some commingling and some inurement going on. However well-intentioned they may be, I do think that that's happening. Council, I'll entertain a motion to approve or deny this application or further discussion.
Based on the findings that have been expressed in reading this document, I move to deny this request.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to deny the request from the Grow and Multiply Ministry. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Paul Borup does oppose. Motion carries. So that will be denied. Okay. Thank you. The next item is the findings for the Corporation of the Episcopal Church. Auditor Bradfield, did you want to present on that, or did you want Deputy Auditor Diana to do it?
No, I discussed with Diana. I can find and represent.
Diana, okay.
So you know that we've denied the Episcopal Church twice in the past and taken it to the state. At this point in time, the 6 factors that were case law for charitable have been codified into statute, and it does include volunteer service. And so for 2021, we strongly recommend approving, because they've proven that gift to the community for both of their tenants, which is included in your packet. In addition to that, based on the intent of the law as discussed with our office and the attorney's office, we will also stand behind a recommendation to refund the 2019 and 2020.
Thank you. Let's keep those 2 items separate. We listed them separately on the,
Okay, that we're just
kind of keep those separate.
just stating it for the case, but
Thank you.
simply put, the volunteer service puts them way over the top as far as the value of the volunteer service as weighed against their tax liability on the Champ House. Thank you.
Thank you. Were there any questions for Diana? Oh. Kathleen, did you have anything to add on the current?
I might.
Okay,
Let me just give you some background, if I may.
okay, and this is on their 2021 application for the Champ House.
I can.
Okay, just
I
making
think
clear.
It's kind of all in a bundle.
Together, okay.
Yes, it really kind of does.
Okay.
So I'm just going to give you some background. In the past, when a church or anyone comes for an exemption, the form that the state had, you marked, do I want a religious exemption, a charitable exemption, or a educational exemption? When the application came in 2019, the church, of course, marked for a religious exemption, as they had in the past. It was discovered at that time that in the Champ House, the church clearly is their church. No one questioned that. The house to the side had 2 businesses operating in it. We visited the property, discussion ensued. We learned that there were 2 501c3 not-for-profit businesses in that property. But at that point in time, it was not being used for religious purposes, as they had marked. That was one of the questions that came up in the 2019 appeal. That was also answered in a decision from the state. The state said, no, you can mark for more than one. So that was good to have that clarification. The second thing and this was in the 2019, they needed to provide evidence then of the activities of the tenants. And in the initial decision that came in 2019, the county prevailed. They upheld the Board of Equalization's decision to not grant the exemption on the Champ House. And the reason is that the burden of proof was the churches. They needed to provide evidence to show that gift to the community, and it wasn't done. I think moving forward, and I think this is where we've all actually come to, if I might, is that we believe now, with an understanding both on our side and their side, I believe that's something they can do. I think they can ask. They clearly have 501c3 organizations. They can provide that evidence that wasn't provided in the beginning. The 2019 case is set for a formal hearing where they then can present new evidence that would show those things. So that just gives you some idea as to where we are. The 2021 case, I think we all agree, yes, they should receive the exemption. They do have 2 501c3 organizations there. And moving back, we'll keep that separate. All right, if that helps.
That helps, thank you. John, did you have anything to add?
Yes, if I may. Just one other piece of context, and I am going to kind of address both because they go kind of hand in hand. Again, the church, clearly, the church building gets the religious exemption, and then they have the home there that was rented out to tenants. And the initial question, as Kathleen said, was, can you get both a religious and educational or religious and charitable exemption on the same piece of property? And the Supreme Court has said yes, and the Utah legislature has said yes. That's been answered. The other question that we had and made the argument against exemption initially was, if a church is renting out its property, even if it's to a charitable organization, does the fact that you're getting income from your property mean you're not using it exclusively for religious purposes, but also using it for income? There was a case from the 1920s, Utah Supreme Court telling an LDS Relief Society that once you rented out the first floor of your Relief Society building, you don't get the exemption. And we used that case and said we believe that's still good law, and didn't grant and recommended against granting the exemption, and argued that to the Tax Commission. Tax Commission has since said, no, a church can rent out, and if you're renting out to a charitable organization or a religious organization, you maintain your exemption. The fact that you're renting doesn't preclude the exemption. So we've learned that as well. But those renters do have to prove that they're charitable in that their activities provide a gift to the community. And until this year, that gift to the community standard has been in a Utah Supreme Court case that has 6 factors that are here on the left of gift to the community, what you need to look for. And that first one, you see whether the stated purpose of the entity is to provide a significant service to others without immediate expectation of material reward. We argued initially that, for example, one of the tenants is Summerfest, and it sure seemed like Summerfest was renting out booths and people selling food, and where's the significant service? And we've since been educated, i.e. they have provided better evidence that there are plenty of learning opportunities for the community, for free classes. It is a free arts fair that anybody can attend, and there's musical concerts that are free to the public, and that if you take a little different view and look at their additional evidence, yes, they're providing a significant service to the community. And so we changed our analysis on that point. The second one, whether the entity is supported and to what extent by donations and gifts. We initially pointed to financial statements that showed that, for example, Summerfest receives very little in the way of donations, but does rent out booths. Turns out, and so forth. So we made these arguments and prevailed initially at the tax commission. In the first of this year, the legislature took this case law, these 6 factors in the case law, and turned them into 5 factors in the code. And it's the broad consensus that these 5 factors are meant to reflect what was intended by the case. That this is not a change in the law, but the way the law really has always meant to be understood, including if you just compare number 2 with number 2, that the use of the property is supported to a material degree by donations and gifts, including volunteer service. With that clarification, we were able to say, oh, well, maybe Summerfest isn't getting lots of donations, but there's plenty of donations of volunteer service time going on, and that counts. And it should have counted last year and in 2019. So that's why as we go through for 2021, the list of factors on the right, I won't take time now to say all of them because all of your staff that's looked at it now agrees that they meet those 5 factors on the right, and that as we now look back at the factors as they were in case law, with a little clarification, they're the same, and so we should have granted it in 2019 and 2020 as well. So that's why we're recommending exemption this year and recommending that the exemption be given to resolve the appeal of 2020 and 2019 as well.
Thank you, John. Any questions, council?
I have a question, John. Just number 2 on gift to community on the right, the use of the property is supported to a material degree by donations and gifts. Would allowing them to use the facility at a subsidized or less than market rate be considered a donation?
Allowing who to use which facility?
Would the church allowing a charitable organization to use the facility, would that at a either for free or at a reduced rate, would that be considered a donation? And
it might, but it's the wrong question with all due respect. We have to look at what is the tenant, what gift is the tenant now giving to the community? And so if the church is giving a break to the tenant, that doesn't help us answer whether the tenant is giving a gift to the community, because the tenant has to be a charity, and that's the test for charity. Are you giving a gift to the community under this standard?
Okay, thanks.
John, in the 2019 and 2020, the other tenant was Global Village Gifts.
Yes.
Do they meet the standard,
Yes, I'll walk that through on Global Village Gifts. Global Village Gifts is an organization that operates largely off of volunteer service time, people donating efforts to it. And they do get some minimal amount of donations, but primarily what they do is they go to third world artisans, often women, who, I'm just going to use an example of, they're weaving baskets. And at market rate in third world country, they can spend all day weaving baskets and selling them and not make enough to support their family. And so Global Village Gifts goes and says, we are going to pay not that market rate, but a fair value for your baskets so that you can support your family from what you're doing. And so they're paying above market value to buy those gifts, to buy those products, bringing them back here to the United States, including Cache Valley, and selling them in a gift shop, and then taking the proceeds of those sales and going and buying more from these third world artisans to sell again. As we initially did the analysis, we said, are they providing a significant service? And all of their publications said, we are paying a fair value for this. And we said, well, if it's fair value, how are you giving service? We've since figured out it's service because they're paying above market value. That initially I interpreted fair value as market value. And if they're just doing a market exchange, then no, that's not a gift. But as you look into what they're really doing, they're not paying market value. They are paying what they believe to be a fair value. In other words, they're paying what you could get on the market plus an excess, which is really a gift to the person so that they can support their family. On the second one, are there donations including, and we got the clarification that volunteer service counts, and so we could do that. Are the recipients of the charitable activities provided on the property are not required to pay for the assistance received? Well, they were giving baskets for the money that they're getting, but the baskets weren't worth as much as the money that they're getting when you look at it in market terms. And so we were able to conclude, yes, they are not being asked to give as much as they're getting. And the beneficiaries of the charitable activities are either unrestricted or, if restricted, the restriction bears a reasonable relationship to the charitable objectives. Well, we aren't giving the gift to people in Cache Valley, but that restriction that we're only giving this to people in third world countries, that bears a reasonable relation to the mission of the organization. And number 5, are any commercial activities provided on the property, are they subordinate or incidental to charitable activities provided on the property? And for this all to work, they've got to have a gift shop where they're then selling those third world arts and crafts, but that is incidental to the broader purpose of providing a living wage for these artisans in the third world. And so they wouldn't open this up just to sell third world arts. That's incidental to, let's provide these artisans with a living wage. That's the analysis that we go through and say, we believe that they meet each of those under those factors. And where our thinking has changed as we've dealt with this case over time. One of the other changes has been that we wondered, the case law talks about gift to the community. Is that this community, Cache County, or can that be to the broader world community? The statute makes no restriction on what the community is, and so we feel comfortable concluding that it is a gift to the broader community than Cache County, and that is acceptable.
Was there another question over here?
There is there any point in this that you take the revenue that's derived from renting out the house and measure that against the gift or the donation that is coming in? For instance, on the Church of the Bubbling, whatever in Florida, based on donations and what they did, or the revenue that comes in for renting based, there never seems to be a number asked about the comparison on the revenue now.
And again, that's because first we look at and that was our first argument, you know, the church is renting this out. Does by renting it, does the church lose its exemption right there? And we don't even have to go on. And that's where the court appears to be saying, and the tax commission says, no, you can rent it out if who you're renting it to qualifies as a charity. And so then you look at this, do the tenants meet this? Now, if the church was renting it out for well over market value and getting a windfall on the rental, then we'd go back and say, okay, yeah, they can rent it out, but they can't rent it out for an exorbitant amount and call it that we're still a charitable, that we're doing this for charity or for religious. That's not the case here. They're not renting it out for over market value. If anything, they're renting it out under market. We think they're right at about market value.
John, something that confuses me, and maybe you can help clarify this, is you talked about how 2019 and 2020, it sounds like what you're saying is we were under case law that has now been put in statute. What I don't understand is how then did the county prevail at the Utah State Tax Commission? Should not have the tax commission applied that case law? I don't understand.
At the risk of patting myself on the back, the church's attorney...
Pat yourself on the back, you deserve.
The church's attorney, I made the same comment to him that, look, we prevailed at the tax commission, why should we look at this differently? His comment was, well, you made the better argument than I did. And he really didn't make the argument that, for example, volunteer service qualifies as a donation. It was my obligation to represent the county and told the tax commission, you look at their financials, you don't see donations on those financials. It was his obligation to then say, yes, but there's volunteer service. That qualifies as a donation. Now, and I have expressed to Kathleen and Diana that if we were simply private parties arguing, I may not have come with a different recommendation for these years. But we're a public entity trying to reach not only winning, but what's the right answer. And although their attorney didn't initially make the best argument, we now recognize what that argument is in this case, and it would be hard to now, in light of the clarification by statute that volunteer service counts as a donation, to now go back to the tax commission and say they aren't supported to a material degree by donations because it's not in their financials. At this point in the process, that attorney on the other side is going to make the right argument and say, but they are supported to a material degree by volunteer service, and that qualifies. So sometimes as these cases go on, you get a different view of them, especially when you get a statute that clarifies things. That we could go back to the tax commission. We're on appeal on those years. We won at the informal stage. We can go and make arguments at the formal stage. In light of where the case has gone, we don't believe we would or should prevail at the formal stage on those 2 years.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, council, the chair will entertain a motion for the 2020 exemption for the Corporation of the Episcopal Church, and then probably separately we should consider the consideration of the possible refund to the Episcopal Church.
Can I ask, I was going to say, can I ask how much they paid in taxes? Can you remember, Kathleen, last year?
It's around $2,500 per year, approximately.
Okay.
Well, I'd make a motion that we approve the remittance of the tax for the 2021 period, since I got outvoted 6-1 last year on it. I'd like everybody to vote with it on me this year. We'll vote with me on it this year.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the exemption for 2021 for the Corporation of the Episcopal Church. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Passes unanimously. Now entertain a motion on the refund.
I'll make a motion that we give a refund for the year 2019.
2019
2019
and 2020.
and 2020. Okay.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to give a refund to the Corporation of the Episcopal Church for the years 2019 and 2020. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Me? Any abstain? Motion carries. Okay, I will need a motion to, we need a motion to adjourn from the Board of Equalization.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn from the Board of Equalization. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. Okay, we will now move to number 9, items of special interest. And the first item there, we have the Animal Impound Facility Update with Sheriff Chad Jensen. And while he's coming up, a little bird told me that today's a really special day for our sheriff. It's his birthday, so.
Turning
Birthday.
37 is horrible. 37 plus a couple.
37 again?
Well, thank you. I just sent Dave a text, and I'm like an 18-year-old kid in a 53-year-old guy's body. So there's that old saying, don't let your mind write a check your body can't cash. I'm kind of getting into that realm of things now, but no, it's a good day. Glad it's almost over, but it's a good day. All right, what are we talking about? Bail reform? Oh, that was 10 hours worth of meetings today. Just here to give an update on the impound facility. We opened the bids up, a little disappointed with what some of the numbers were. I think if you think back a little bit farther is I sent the bid back out for rebid and had a couple local contractors bid on the project, and it came in to be about that $2 million range, give or take a little bit. We just got the bids back, going through the process by statute, and had the committee open up the bids, and we're at $3.2 million, and 2 of those bids were the same ones who bid on it, was it 4 or 5 months prior to that. Discussions I've had with them, they're like, it's materials. What was once $15 a sheet for plywood is now $45 a sheet for plywood. What was once $90 a yard for concrete is $200 a yard for concrete, if you can even get the concrete. So it's substantially higher than what we initially had discussed. I've been looking through and working with Bryce and Cameron, and something I found, whether you guys want to use this or not use this as we move forward, is I'm looking at the revenues from my office, and fortunately this year, timing was good, I guess, if for lack of a better term, is in this legislative session, we were able to go from $54 to $61 a day in daily rates for the inmates. So what we would anticipate moving forward for 21 and all the way in through next year is we would see about a $908,000 increase in revenues that weren't going to be counted when we did the budget because the rate wasn't given to us at that point. That number's a little bit low. Cameron's staff went through it and they came up with a little bit higher number than I came up with. But outside of that, I don't know what else I can do through the sheriff's office to make up that $1 million deficit. So I just bring that back to the council and give you the bad news, give you a little bit of good news that maybe it's there, but need some direction on moving forward. I know it's a big number, but it really doesn't help us fix the problem we have with impounds. If we don't go forward with this, I don't know what direction we'd have to head. Us and all the cities would have to get pretty creative on what we're going to do with animals who get impounded, but I guess we'll worry about that if it needs to be worried about.
Well, it's probably not gonna get any cheaper.
I think the last time you were here, right, you and I had a conversation. I said,
You were right.
Make sure you boost it.
You should have shot your number a little higher.
Yeah, I think I was even a little low, and I thought I was shooting high, so,
Well, I
that's
mean,
what you need, so.
it's pretty frustrating at how things go. And there's the contractors, all of them, that bid are as frustrated as we are. I mean, this isn't the only thing they're trying to bid on. They've got projects they've already started, they get put on a waiting list somewhere for the concrete. And you may only pour a half a basement, not a full basement, given what they can do with materials. So this is gonna be a problem for quite some time. Even if prices were to come down and they can start making more concrete, they're looking at a year to 18 months before us, who needs to go buy supplies, would start seeing that decrease in material prices.
Sheriff, I had a question. I know we talked about this the other day, but I didn't think to ask this question. Does that cost include any of the things inside the building, like furniture, tables, surgical rooms?
I think it included, I'm not exactly, it included the kennels. I'm not sure about the office furniture and such, but I know it included everything for the animal care and the kennels in the back.
Do we have any idea what, in addition to the cost for the building, do we have any idea of what the additional cost would be to get it ready to operate?
I think Chief Deputy Billadu has those numbers. Whatever office furniture, I mean, I could throw a ballpark at it, maybe a couple $100,000 for the office furniture front part of it. I know the back piece of it was included in the bid process.
Thanks.
Is this on a cost plus, or is it, I mean, like, whatever their cost is, we pay? So it could go higher, it could go up to $5 million. Is that where we're at?
I think,
It would, but,
I assume so, yeah. I mean, they're gonna have to deal with the prices that they're getting as well.
I don't know contractors who aren't bidding on that basis now, given the cost of the increases.
Yeah, I was just in a meeting with some contractors and the sureties. I mean, all their surety folks are saying, you gotta build this into your contract or we won't bond the job. So you're getting cost plus contracts. Period.
I think we need to ask the folks that reviewed those bids to be sure they'll come back.
Of what, if that was
It's not my impression that these were cost plus.
bids?
Correct. That these were firm numbers.
Okay. Well, I can bring that back too.
That would be good to follow.
That would be good follow-up.
Executive Zook, I'm not familiar with these ARPA funds, but can any of those funds be used for any of this?
We're not sure yet. It's not clear whether or not we can. As of right now, I'm not aware of it being allowed, but we may be able to find a way. We just haven't identified it yet.
are there any grants that you know of that could help us with this?
Other than what the jail contracting piece right now is the only thing that I've seen that would be available to help with this.
Yeah.
Okay.
There may be some stuff with programs and stuff once the facility's open, but not anything as far as the construction would go that I've seen yet.
And that's something we could take as an action item for the finance office to work to identify potential other sources of funding to pay for it. And probably if we were gonna do that, we'd wanna make sure we're looking at the full cost, to furnish it, look at the full cost, including ongoing costs. We should probably look at that as well if we're gonna come back with a funding recommendation.
Can I just confirm that the bids were not submitted, I talked to the bid committee on a cost plus basis, and I've reviewed an initial draft of the contract that we would use, which has been reviewed by the
Committee.
the committee and the top bidder, and it does not contain cost plus. It's
It's a hard number.
hard number.
So 3.2 would be the hard number for the winning bid.
Sheriff, how many square feet did you say this was?
Just over 11,000 total. That includes the office space, the medical space, and the kennels in the back.
Well, council, what would you like to do?
No, that we don't need to really
Well, he kind of needs to know.
vote on anything like that, but I would say, look, we better move ahead with it, just because it's not gonna get any cheaper. We have a firm bid apparently, and we ought to just get it done.
I'm completely supportive.
And keep looking for other ways to fund it,
Additional, yeah, I
ARPA
agree.
and other things.
Well, just one thing, we haven't signed the contract yet. We've just kind of been waiting for this meeting to see what direction the council wanted to go. So the contract they're getting to us now. One thing we have completed so far is the MOU with the nonprofit and what duties each one of us are going to have. And basically how it boils down to is the county will take care of the front business half end of piece of the facility, while the nonprofit will take care of all the animal care, the medical care, the feeding, the training, the grooming, whatever the animals need will be taken care of by the nonprofit. So there's no dollars being swapped back and forth between the county and us and the nonprofit.
Council, is there anyone who objects to moving forward? And then also looking to see if there's other grants that will help pay for this?
So do you want me to come back with, or have finance department come back with a recommendation on how we would make up that difference?
I think that's a great idea.
Do you want that to happen when we do the budget adjustment? Because we'd have to put more money in the budget too, because that money's not in the budget at this point.
I think that's a great idea as well.
I think isn't the next budget opening on the 8th? Is I think what Cameron told me
Yeah.
today.
Well, for the 24th, we'll have the hearing
Public hearing's on the 8th.
on the 8th.
Are we saying to go ahead with the 3.2 million, or what if the contractor says it's cost plus then?
I think they verified the contractor wasn't cost plus. It was a hard number on their bid.
Our approval is on the hard number.
On the hard number, correct.
The challenge is if we take too much time, then, the contractor can't honor it, because it's the way building costs are going up. We can't drag and expect him to be able to do it.
Very true.
Yeah, you want to solve a contractor, so let's approve it and get them on the job.
I agree.
Now, part of the contract that we'll sign with the contractor is he in turn turns around and contracts with all the subcontractors. We need to get, if it's going to move forward, he's got to have time to work through those contracts with the subs so they can come in with the number that he's bid the project for. And I would hope that the subcontractors who also help look at this will be right where they need to be with their numbers as well.
You don't need a motion, or do we need a motion?
I don't know that we need a formal motion.
Okay.
I would
I
ask
think-
James, but
I think it would be good to give the sheriff our approval of proceed rather than no.
okay, why don't you make a motion?
Make a motion that we go ahead and give permission for the sheriff to go ahead with the idea that the council is in favor when we get some of these other things worked out. And that way, we are making an effort that we do want to proceed with the project. Otherwise, if we hang on for another month or 2 months, that contractor is not going to be able to give us those numbers.
Yeah. I think what he's going to want initially is, we'll have the contract to the county attorney's office by Friday or the first part of next week to review it on our end to make sure that we're good to go. And he would be looking for a contract to be signed shortly after that approval is taken care of with the county.
Yeah, we want to take a real good look at all that language and make sure there's not the risk of that
Cost
inflation,
plus,
right?
yeah.
And so we'll take another look at that before the county executive signs anything. We'll
Yeah, that's,
look at that really carefully.
my other concern is I can't actually sign it until they approve the new budget, right?
Yeah, the money needs to be.
Probably true.
awarded.
Okay, we have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so I'm going to restate the motion, make sure I get this right. So the motion is to go ahead and give initial approval to moving forward with the animal impound facility while looking for additional funding sources and having an attorney review it, looking at the possibility of inflationary costs. Is that
That's close enough.
close enough?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries unanimously.
Great, thank you.
Anytime you hear the word cost plus, that's like a blank check.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay,
Okay, well, I'm going to go to dinner, so.
Sheriff, thank you. Okay, we're now going to move to 9B, which is our Open and Public Meetings Act training. Annually, public bodies are required to have a open and public meetings training, and we have a video from the Office of the State Auditor that we're going to watch. I should have brought some popcorn for you. And following that, James is going to address us.
I would entertain any questions. The video is just so engaging. I'll pass these around. These are just a summary of the Open Meetings Act, to make that part of the record, but if there are questions after, I think we can keep this to 8 minutes and 30 seconds.
You're saying that this here thing will revive us and make us excited with what we...
Yeah,
No,
it's kind of fast-moving.
It's relevant information, and the information that's on that video is contained in this as well. I don't hear as well.
That's
I
all
read
there.
a whole lot better, so that's for those readers in the room that don't absorb information.
Short on these.
I was gonna say.
These people out here.
So what's the Open Public Meetings Act? It's the state law that ensures government actions and deliberations are openly conducted. Before we continue, keep in mind that this video is an overview, and exceptions may exist based on your entity type. So what's considered an open and public meeting? It's when a governing body majority meets to discuss or act upon government business. It includes the meetings sometimes referred to as workshops or executive sessions. Regular meetings, public hearings, electronic meetings, and emergency meetings are all open and public meetings. Open and public meetings don't include chance or social meetings. A public hearing is a type of open and public meeting where citizens have a reasonable opportunity to speak. Public hearings happen when a government adopts a budget or imposes or increases taxes or fees. An electronic meeting is a type of open and public meeting that's convened electronically, such as via phone or the internet. Remember, the governing body must adopt a resolution, rule, or ordinance allowing and governing electronic meetings. An open and public meeting may be closed to discuss any of the following: a person's character, competence, or health, security personnel, devices, or systems deployment, collective bargaining, litigation, purchase, sale, or lease of property if an open discussion would prevent the entity from completing the transaction on the best terms, investigations of criminal misconduct, and private or protected information per the Utah Procurement Code, including trade secrets. 2/3 of the governing body need to vote yes to close a meeting. Quick math lesson. 2 divided by 3 equals 66.7%. Let's say your governing body has 5 members. If 3 out of the 5 members vote yes, that equals 60%, which is not equal to or greater than 66.7%, which means you're 1 member short, and instead need 4 out of 5 members to vote yes. During a closed meeting, the governing body can't interview someone applying to fill an elected position, discuss filling a midterm vacancy or temporary absence, discuss the character, competence, or health of a person whose name was submitted for consideration to fill a midterm vacancy or temporary absence, or approve any ordinance, resolution, rule, regulation, contract, or appointment. If a closed meeting is discussing the person's character, competence, or health, or security personnel, devices, or systems deployment, no recording or minutes are required. However, the presiding member needs to sign a sworn written statement stating such. If the closed meeting is held for any other reason, a recording must be made. Emergency meetings may be held to discuss an urgent matter due to unforeseen circumstances. In order to hold the meeting, the best notice that's feasible is provided of the time, location, and topics to be considered. An attempt is made to contact all governing body members, and the governing body majority approves the meeting. Entities that hold regular meetings need to provide notice at least annually of the year's meeting schedule. As always, the notice must include date, time, and place. For entities that don't hold regularly scheduled regular meetings, 24 hours notice must be provided. All meetings, whether regularly scheduled in advance over the course of the year or scheduled as needed, must provide no less than 24 hours notice of meeting agendas. If a public hearing is held, public notice requirements change. Make sure to distinguish between regular meeting notice requirements and public hearing notice requirements. For regular meetings, an entity is only required to notify a newspaper and doesn't need to pay to publish a notice. For public hearings, notice must be published in at least one issue of a newspaper. If a newspaper of general circulation isn't available, written notice is posted in 3 public places within the entity's boundaries. Regular meetings require 24 hours notice. Public hearings require 7 days notice. For both regular meetings and public hearings, written notice must be posted at the principal office of the governing body, or, if no such office exists, at the building where the meeting will be held. Governing bodies must also provide notice of open and public meetings on the public notice website at publicnotice.utah.gov. By posting on the website and providing the email of the local newspaper, governing bodies can also meet the requirement to notify a newspaper. However, other requirements such as publishing in a newspaper still apply. Typically, posting on the public notice website is done by the records officer, recorder, or clerk. However, it's the governing body's responsibility to ensure notice is provided. State Archives has prepared a training manual and quick guide for owners and posters, as well as training videos that can be accessed at their website at archives.utah.gov. If your entity is increasing a fee or undergoing truth in taxation for a property tax increase, be aware that there are additional notice and posting requirements. Public meeting agendas need to include reasonably specified topics to be considered, with each topic listed under a separate agenda item on the meeting agenda. The governing body may not consider a topic in an open meeting that wasn't on the agenda. If a new topic not on the agenda is raised by the public during an open meeting, the governing body may discuss the topic. However, final action may not be taken on the new topic during that meeting. Meeting minutes and an audio recording are required for all open meetings, with limited exceptions. When an open or closed meeting is required to be recorded, it must be unedited and contain all the portions of the meeting. Recordings of open meetings must be made available within 3 days. Every entity needs to establish procedures for the governing body's approval of minutes. Pending minutes are written minutes prepared in draft form and are subject to change before being approved by the governing body. Pending minutes must contain a clear indication, such as a draft or pending watermark, that the governing body hasn't yet approved the minutes and that they're subject to change. Pending minutes must be made available within 30 days. Approved minutes are written minutes of a meeting that have been approved by the governing body. Approved minutes are the official record of the meeting and must be made available within 3 business days. Whoever is responsible for taking the minutes during meetings, typically the records officer, recorder, or clerk, needs to be familiar with what OPMA requires be contained in the minutes. When a governing body closes a meeting, the following must be publicly announced and entered into the minutes of the open meeting at which the closed meeting was approved. The reason or reasons for holding the closed meeting, the location where the closed meeting will be held, and the vote of each member of the governing body either for or against the motion to close the meeting. The recording and any minutes must include the date, time, and location of the meeting, the names of the governing body members present and absent, and the names of all others present, except where disclosure would infringe on the confidentiality necessary to fulfill the original purpose of closing the meeting. For more information, access our local government resource center at resources.auditor.utah.gov.
That fulfills your requirement for the Open Meetings Act. So if you have any questions, we can talk about it now or later, but we promise you 8 minutes and 30 seconds. The handout does summarize all of that, so it's a good reference for you in the future. I don't see anything glaring that the council is abiding by that. Give you a good overview.
Are there any questions? Thank you, James. Appreciate that. Okay. On that note, we will move to, oh, it still said 5:30 on this public hearings thing, but I'll turn your mics back on. But we're just setting public hearings, so we can be an hour late, I guess. Okay, so items 10A and 10B, We have some public hearings to set, one for a rezone and the other is for amending the county budget. I'll entertain a motion to do so.
Move to set public hearing, June 8th, ordinance 2021-16, and for resolution.
Second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to set those public hearings. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we'll now move to item 11, pending action. 11A, Resolution 2021-05, appointing 2 additional members to the Cache County Drainage District Number 6 Board of Trustees.
Move to approve resolution 2021-05.
Well, we need to hear from there's another, I know Mr. Wright is here to speak to us for a second.
Okay, thank you. I didn't realize that we had someone else. Thank you.
Yeah, we did.
All right, Mr. Wright, would you come to this podium here, give us your name, and tell us about yourself and why you want to be on the board? Tell us your name and why you want to be on the board.
In less than 8 minutes.
I'm Bill Wright. I live in Lewiston. I've moved there in '78. I grew up in Heber City. And I've always felt that community was more important than individuals. I've always felt that as individuals we need to step up and help the community, that we shouldn't have an agenda that put money in our pocket with what we can do through the community. Like I say, I've farmed there. I'm intimately aware of all of the drains and the crossings because me and my sons have hunted them for 43 years. It's vitally important to know where the crossing is when the pheasant lands on the other side of the drain. And I've worked with Cub River Irrigation in the city twice to improve the drainage districts on my own. They ran a drain through some land I own into the drain that borders my property. And then Cub River's when they put the east pipe in, I have a turnout in the middle of my property that goes north in case Lewiston ever wants to put in secondary water for the city, and just let them do it. So anyway, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but I'm here, I can do it. And probably my best asset is I am dependable and I show up and get the job done.
Thank you, Bill. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you.
Sounds like a worthy candidate.
Council, it's just brought to my attention that, let me just say, we don't have the name, we don't have an Exhibit A on our iPads that has the names.
The names that we've had, we have heard from Eric Summers and Regan Wheeler previously. The other name that was sent in was Landon Heyer. I reached out to him here the past few days to see if he could come and share too, but he is out of town with some work. He does have some land within this area, and some of the end of the drainage he mentioned does end up down by the river bottom, some of his river bottom ground. But he did say that he was really busy. So,
is he willing to serve?
He's willing, excited. He didn't seem real excited, but he said he was willing. That's all I have from the conversation.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I believe we're required under state law to have a public hearing about these. And I think we've had it 3 times on the agenda.
Yes.
I don't have a recommendation for you tonight as far as an appointment. I'd be happy to consult with Councilmember Erickson if he wants to discuss who we've had so far express interest, or I would defer to him if he wants to make a recommendation now for the seats.
I know I've heard from several constituents in the area in that drainage district. I've talked with several of them, and I know the names of Bill Wright and Eric Summers have soundly come out several times to be supported to fill those 2 new positions. So I would nominate Bill Wright and Eric Summers for those 2 new positions.
Okay. there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to approve Bill Wright and Eric Summers as the 2 additional members of the Cache County Drainage District Number 6 Board of Trustees. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention?
Was that a motion to approve the actual resolution that's before you?
Approve the names.
That was
Did we
to,
not already approve this resolution?
no, that was to
Oh,
approve, that-
okay.
I guess that would be to approve the names for that resolution.
Okay,
And you could go ahead and,
Well, I made a motion to approve the resolution 2021-05, and I'll continue that motion.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve resolution 2021-05. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Both those motions carry unanimously.
I've got a
and
question.
to let you know, those districts now are fully, at this point, they are completely, of the 7 drainage districts in the state of Utah, 4 of them are in Lewiston. And now they're all qualified and fully put together to where they can legally do what they need to do, so.
Madam Chair, I have a
Yes.
question on this. This here resolution 2021-05 was for 2 additional members.
Yes.
We also have resolutions for the other ones, so
Yes.
we've done all of them kind of separately?
Yeah,
Okay, so then we're fine.
This is the only one that was changing to 5 members, right?
changed from
correct?
3 to 5.
From 3 to 5, and so we needed 2 additional people.
The others all had 3 on them.
This has went on so long that you lose track of what we've done and what we haven't. I know, it's, I don't know, President Jackson, he's almost lived here for 2 months, so, you know, we appreciate his attendance. He'll be ready to run.
Okay. Okay, we will now move to item 11B, which is consideration of the Wraps and Restaurant Tax Committee 2021 funding recommendations. And before we move further, I want to make it clear that the county is not bound to give Wraps money to any organization on a long-term basis, but reviews and awards requests annually, and that granting Wraps applications does not create a binding contract to give ongoing money. I just want to make that clear. And so with that, council, do you have any changes, additions, or entertain a motion to approve the recommendation?
Madam Chair, could I just give a summary of some changes from last time? I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of.
Go ahead, thank you.
There was, last time, a change that was made in relation to the amount for the rodeo. And the reason I'd like to point this out is because there were 2 versions of the recommendation, apparently, that were circulated. It sounds like one that was in your media packet had the old number, and one that was emailed to you has the correct number. And I believe that correct number was the $19,000 amount. It was initially $8,620, and now it should be $19,620 for the Cache County Fairgrounds Event Center. It's number 12 on your list. So
What was the number again, David?
number 12 on your list,
Number 12,
Cache
okay.
County Fairgrounds / Event Center, advertising and promoting the Cache County Fair and Rodeo. The original number was $8,620. The corrected number from last time was $19,620. So the one that you are looking at that has that number, that should be the one that you make a motion on. That's the most up-to-date version. And then just to review the amounts available, we started off with over $2 million left over from previous years. We had about $3 million of new money this year to spend, and what's before you right now is about $2.7 million. So in requests, so even if you approve all of the funds that are before you tonight, you'll still have about 3 million left over in residual funds, counting what's left over from this year and what's left over from previous years. I guess I should also mention, just so everybody's aware.
Don't you mean 2 million,
Yeah.
not 3 million?
Yeah, 2.3.
You said 3 million left over?
3 million is what we would have left over when you take what we had left over from previous years plus what you would have left over from this year and combine those.
2 plus 3 is 5, and if we do 2.7,
Those are rounded, those are not exact numbers. I have a spreadsheet if you want to see the full spreadsheet, but those are approximates. According to the finance office, if you approved what's before you tonight, which is $2,716,205, you'd have $3,098,742 left over in your fund balance. I guess I should also mention, just to make sure everybody's aware, there were 2 applications received after the deadline that I believe those have been provided to you. One was from Summerfest requesting $40,000, and one was from the Summer Citizens requesting $30,000. And those have been provided to you, but they were not vetted by the committee. They came in after the deadline, and so they did not follow the normal process. However, you do have $3 million left over that if you chose to make a motion to fund them, they would very much appreciate that.
How does that go with those who have emailed us asking us an increase as well? That wasn't following the same course then as well, right?
Which ones?
I think each of us received emails of others asking for more money. And
Correct.
so how does that follow along with what you're adding on the other 2 that asked for money?
Yeah, I guess it's my understanding it's the council's discretion what your recommendation is. You have a or what your motion is and what your approval amounts are. You have a recommendation from the committee that reviewed the applications, but my understanding is that past practice has been that the council has made some adjustments at this point based on your own preferences. If you'd like to increase or decrease, you have discretion to do that. And there are guidelines in the code as far as which ones can be funded, but and in which categories. But it seems that we have enough money in each of the categories that you would probably not run into any funding limits.
one of the concerns I have with considering funding things that for people who missed the deadline for application is that it opens this up then to kind of a disorganized way of determining who we provide the funding to. We have in the past had the ability, well, we still have the ability to consider formal late applications, but not as part of our initial RAPS approval. I mean, we do have discretion to increase amounts that were formally applied for under the deadline, but the ones that have come in since the deadline passed, I'm a little hesitant to do that at this time with these with this motion because of the precedence it would set that the deadline really doesn't matter.
And I think going along with what you're saying, Carl, is we've been very, very, very strict as a council on anyone that has a late application fee asking for forgiveness. We have turned them down simply because of what you just said. I think the one time we did take in consideration is when it was, I think it was either the Zoo or American West Heritage Center, who we, at least with the Zoo, we're required to fund, that we allowed it to happen. But there's been a lot of people that has missed the deadline that we've just turned them down simply because we got to have order in what we do. And so I think you're suggestion is very well taken, that we maybe don't consider them. I don't think we should.
As I recall, it was the zoo, and the reason that we did it was because they have a carve-out and they were 1 day late, whereas these other applications are weeks late.
Well, and the way the RAPS tax was presented to the taxpayers 20 years ago, the zoo was automatically rewarded X amount of money. And so in order to fulfill that, we had to kind of honor it. And other than that, it's been pretty strictly that we just turned them down and said, sorry, learn your lesson and don't be late next year. I mean, that's a hard line, but that's the only way you can keep some order to it.
Yeah, I agree.
And that application is vetted by that committee. They do go through that. There's verification of who's involved, where the money is specifically going, how it, that's what that committee is to do, to go through that process and verify its substances to really, how that money will be used. And that's why it's really tough to even give them, as far as to bring them in, that I think that needs to go through that vetting process. And so we need to, that committee or us, we need to see the application if we need to vet it. I still think the committee would have to look at it, and where the deadline's gone, I really hate to, the deadlines won't mean anything in the future, so.
But also with what Carl said, after the committee has met, not even all council members is on the committee. However, there is a representative from our area that does sit on the committee. It still becomes us as a council that makes the decisions. If we want to change either additionally or make the reward less, we can do that as a council, and that's what we're really trying to do here today, is we've got the recommendations, and then with the public input to us, then we can decide if we want to bring it before the council to discuss additional funding or funding that maybe is not right. I guess that's what we're doing here right now.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I did have one question on one of the late applications. It mentioned that it possibly could have been sent to a wrong email because the past Linda Didabo, is that her name?
Yeah, something like that.
Retired, and they put someone new in, and the new person claims they didn't get the email. Can you? We don't send an email out. Okay. It's just posted on our website. Okay, very good, thank you.
Because there was an application presented, and because it is a line item, the zoo has requested an increase of $50,000, and I would propose that we add that to their request at this time.
Okay, is there a second to amend this and add that?
So are you saying increase it from 155,000 to 205,000?
205, increase it. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And doesn't the zoo already get a percentage?
They have to ask for
And
up to a certain amount.
they actually got their full request according to their application. And I'm hesitant to then
I am too. They already have
jump
one of the
more.
They're one of the very few people on the RAPS tax list that has an automatic designation. And when they're given their full thing first, above and beyond anyone else.
Well, and the application designates, basically, this is how it's gonna be used. And this is how it's gonna be used for 155,000.
Yeah, they requested 155,000. Their percentage that they could have been entitled to would have been 208,000. However, there's no way, I don't know if there's a way for them to know beforehand what that number is that we've received. I guess they could potentially ask.
Not until we get the numbers.
Yeah, once we have the numbers. So I think what they do is they guess approximately what it might be, and they ask for 155,000. They could have asked for 208,000, and we probably would have been required to give that to them. So they only asked for 155, and the committee
It
gave it
says
to them.
Yeah,
up to that percentage,
Up to?
yeah.
Is there a second then to add 50,000 to the grant for Zutah at Willow Park? Seeing none, the motion dies for lack of second. Is there any motion to approve this as is? I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and approve the numbers for the people who have requested wraps and restaurant tax money as it has been posted, and thank the committee for their hard work and all the input that was given to them.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the wraps and restaurant recommended funding for 2021 with the correction of $19,620 for number 12, the Cache County Fairgrounds and Events Center. Is there any further discussion?
I just looked up the section about zoo, and I don't see up to in here. This is what it says: allocate 10% after administrative costs to the Willow Park Zoo based on an acceptable proposal submitted each year. The percentage will be reviewed each year. If less than 10%, the additional funds may be allocated to Parks and Rec. So it says to allocate 10%, but it also says it's based on their application that they submit. And then it does say that if less than that, if less than 10% is allocated, I'm assuming is what it means, that the rest could be used for other things. So I think there is an assumption in there that they might not request all 10%.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? The RAPS recommendation passes unanimously. Okay. We now have moved to number 12, initial proposals for consideration of action. Resolution 2021-10, a resolution to approve the interlocal agreement between Cache County and municipalities for the administration of the 2021 municipal elections. Did you guys see that document? I didn't see it.
May I speak to that, madam?
Yes, oh, there
Sorry.
you are. I need
Sorry,
to
I
take
jumped
off
up so
my,
quick.
I need to get on my far side. This is my near side.
The interlocal agreements for helping the municipalities with their elections, initially, we thought may require council approval for those interlocal agreements. The state code lists off a number of times when the council must approve an interlocal agreement, and some instances where it's just the executive that approves that. The one that we were looking at is if there's a budget change required to enter the interlocal agreement, then it would require a council approval. Mr. Bradfield, the clerk, has let us know that there will not be a budget change associated with these interlocal agreements, and so the executive is the one who should be approving them, and that's why you don't have a resolution in front of you, and you can move on to the next item.
Thank you. Bryson, can you make sure that's reflected in the minutes? Okay, thank you. Okay, other business. Golly, this is like the longest list ever. Okay, the Children's Justice Grand Opening is set for next Wednesday, June 2nd at 11. It might be rescheduled. Do we know anything on that?
It will be at this point rescheduled. We're looking, there's some building delays. Building won't be ready and sparkling clean and tidied up, especially the outside. The CJC's had a hard time even getting some concrete, which is necessary for an ADA slot. And then there's other landscaping and things that need to be done before we have the open house. So we're looking at June 29th.
June 29th?
30th. We'll let you know what, there'll be a committee meeting Thursday.
Okay.
Lock that down, and we're looking at the dignitaries that are coming in. We'll get you news as soon as we possibly can.
I'm glad, because I couldn't be there Wednesday.
Me neither. Yeah.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, good news.
Pick you up then.
Okay, the second item is the Greater Cache Valley Economic Summit. That's set for the next day, next Thursday, June 3rd, at the Riverwoods. It's from 7:30 to 4. If you're interested, you need to sign up at the Cache Chamber of Commerce. I can get you more information. It looks like it's going to be a great event. We've got the Lieutenant Governor, Deidre Henderson, will be there. We've got people coming from the governor's office as well to present. We're going to talk about hiring and retention, tourism, workforce and returnships, rural online initiatives, state business resources, commercial land development, housing market, and what Utah looks like post-COVID. So if you're interested, you can go sign up there. Maybe if there's 5 of us, we could get a discount. I don't know that there'll be 5 of us, but if you want more information, I've got this flyer for you, and I can also email you more information. And that was Sean Milne who let us know about that, our Economic Development Director. Okay, Smithfield Health Days Parade, unusually in June, but that's when it is, Saturday, June 5th at 10 a.m., and we have David Zook, myself, Carl, and David Erickson. Anybody else?
I can't be there.
You can't be there?
And
Okay.
there's a possibility I
I have a baptism, not my own,
Well, that could be interesting.
grandson,
Any other takers?
which was my own.
So it might be just you and David.
Yeah.
Well, plenty of candy though.
We will.
Hopefully.
We have a lot more candy since John White left. What's
Sorry.
that?
You go to my baptism, or my grandson's baptism.
Okay, let's see.
Might be a good idea to let the mayor sit on the truck and throw candy at his own city.
No, because he wears a dress. Yeah, he's always in his Scottish dress in the parade.
You don't need to put that in the minutes, Bryson.
Sorry about that, Jeff. We know each other too well.
Oh, gosh. Okay, Logan Dignitary Days, June 13th through the 18th. If you're interested, do we just talk to you, Janine?
I need to call them again and find out if there's something coming in the mail. They didn't know when I talked to them before.
Okay.
These are just the dates, so.
These are just the dates.
Follow up on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Is
Okay,
there
Nick,
something going on there, or did we just walk around and say I'm a dignitary, let me in line?
you just walk around and ride the
Hope
rides
we get
and,
some kind of a price cut or break.
yeah,
don't
you
we?
get it's a discount and you'll see lots of other elected officials there that you know. It's kind of funny. Okay,
Hotness.
Nibley Heritage Days Parade, Saturday, June 19th.
I won't be able to be
Okay,
to
so
that one
Barbara
after all.
won't be there. I have David Zook, Carl, Gordon, Nolan, possibly myself. Okay, the Lewiston 4th of July Parade, Saturday, July 3rd, 9:15 a.m. And then we also have the Hiram 4th of July Parade. Oh, that's not on the 4th of July, that's on the 5th. Okay, so anyone for the Saturday, July 3rd, Lewiston 4th?
I will be going to Lewiston one.
You will? Okay.
I can probably make the Lewiston one, because I think
I
that,
can too.
I think that's the first time they've not had them on the same day.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was
that's-
thinking they were
yeah.
the same day. And so
Usually they're the same day and you go to.
So run.
Yeah.
Yeah, that will be unique because everyone's used to running down to the other parade. They won't know what to do with the rest of the day. Okay, the Hiram 4th of July Parade, Monday, July 5th at 10 a.m. We have David Zook, Barbara, Gordon, Nolan, Carl.
I'll still go to that.
Still good, and
You might have to
myself.
sit with me all stinky, because I'm gonna run the race.
Wow.
we can handle it, Barbara.
We can.
Okay.
That's really neat. You're going to do that. Okay, Cache County Employee Summer Party is Thursday, July 15th at 6 p.m.
Those are food trucks, right?
What are we doing that day? Is it at the fairgrounds?
Yes, same as last year, only this time the pool should be open.
Oh, neat.
And it's food trucks.
There's
so-
water in it.
We're not cooking on nuts. I like to do
No,
that.
they may have you volunteer like you did last year.
And I wasn't there, what did they do?
I think we gave out drinks.
I don't remember what we did. Gave out
Yeah.
drinks.
Okay, good
Throw
job.
us in the pool,
Yeah, huh?
and throw us in the pool,
Okay.
while the pool's open.
No, that's your baptism.
Yeah, that's a
That one I'll
tradition,
qualify
right? With
for.
new members, wink, wink, that's a tradition.
Yeah.
Okay, Hyde Park Hometown Days, Saturday, July 17th at 10 a.m. I will be there.
July 17th.
Put a question mark for me. That's too far away.
You can put me down for that.
Carl, I thought you'd retired and you had plenty of time to just look for things to do.
I'll tell you what you find out when you retire is that there were so many things that you should have been doing you didn't know about. But, you're busier than when you were working. You had an excuse for not doing all those other
You
things.
had to go to work and now you don't have an excuse, right?
That's right.
So what's better, working or being free?
Being free is still better.
It's still better,
Yeah.
all right.
All right, North Logan Pioneer Day Parade, Friday, July 23rd, 10 a.m. Miss Barbara?
Yeah.
I will be there as well.
Put me as a question mark.
Put me down there, yeah, it's a question mark too.
Okay,
That's actually a really good parade.
It is.
yeah, kind of like that parade. I'm kind of partial to it. Okay, the Logan City Pioneer Day Parade, Saturday, July 24th. This is fun with it on Saturday. We're like having all these
Yeah.
multiple,
Yeah.
Saturday and Sunday for both these party for a weekend.
Logan's just a marathon though, isn't it?
Huh?
That's really long. Yeah,
It's not too bad.
it seems really long
But it's
to
all
me.
downhill.
It's all down here.
Okay, so we have Carl and Barbara. Any other takers?
Yep, I'm still planning on it.
I won't be there.
First east, or first west to fifth west and across to park. That's all it is.
Okay.
Seemed like forever.
He's
It
probably
does seem to
walking.
take forever, maybe because it's so hot.
It could be because
Okay,
And there's lots of people that attend that.
there are lots
I
of
think
people.
this time last year it was 90 degrees,
Yeah.
wasn't it? That's the difference between that and this year.
Okay, Summer Salsa Showdown, and that's gonna be in our council meeting. We're gonna be tasting different salsas, and that's Tuesday, July 27th, and we'll be meeting at 3 p.m. that day. Whew.
Where's that one at?
I was just gonna say, who's
Here,
bringing
isn't it just
Pepto? I
here
don't
in the
like that.
council chambers? Isn't that the plan?
I'll bring you some guac, Nolan.
Thank you, or Pepto, I'm not a salsa fan, so I shouldn't be judging it, so.
I'll sit by you. 'Cause if it's too hot, I can't tell you how good it is. I'll just taste fire.
I don't even like pepper on my eggs, right?
I knew I liked you.
We're used to getting my palate the way it is, so I'm gonna keep it there.
yeah, Mr. I live in a box.
You ought to get out in the world a little bit, I guess.
I've been out, I came back.
We don't want to know.
You about made Janine choke. That was, I wish we had a picture of that. Okay, council member reports. David Erickson, let's start with you.
I got a lot of questions, but they aren't for the whole group or comments, so I don't have anything. I know UAC conference I thought was really, really good. Gave it extremely informational, and it was so great to just get down there and felt like we were back to normal and just open dialogue and discussion with everything. I thought it was really, really good, and it's about time. That's all. I got several others, but I'm going to save those for another time.
Okay, thank you. Gordy.
We found out after you and the chairman went down to that meeting, was it a council meeting, that we can hold a lot faster meetings when you guys don't attend. So, anyway, I guess we're not saying that we don't appreciate
I
getting
get credit. I wrote the agenda.
Anyway, I'm glad he was able to attend, and we had a pretty good meeting 2 weeks ago. We've had a very good meeting again today. We got a good chairman, and I appreciate what she does. Other than that, I was just telling Dave that last year at this time it was 90 degrees outside, and this year just much, much cooler. Temperature's been much, much cooler this year. I don't know what that means, but it's just an observation that I've made. And, the alfalfa hay is unbelievable how well it's coming. Even as dry, it's just a big leafy crop. Grateful for those who serve on this council and for all of the county employees. We have a little bit of a the concern going around the county that, people are complaining and all that, but all in all, we're doing a decent job.
Thanks, Gordy. Carl?
Just second Dave's comment about the UAC conference. It was very good. And just there's a special meeting tomorrow at 10:30 with Wayne Niederhauser, who's been commissioned by Governor Cox to address the homeless issues, and he's going to be in Cache Valley. The Bragg group is going to be giving him a tour of the valley. I unfortunately won't be able to be there, but there's some work being done to help mitigate the challenges that exist with some people. That's all I have.
Thank you, Carl. Barbara?
Nothing to report.
Paul?
I don't have anything to report, but I wouldn't want to let the opportunity pass to say I'm looking forward to Memorial Day and how this is the greatest nation that's ever existed on earth. And while it has its black eyes and hasn't always lived up to the ideals, we do have the ideals. And for all that's going on, this is the last best place. And I appreciate being able to live in this country, in this valley.
Here.
Thank you, Paul. Nolan?
I don't have anything but a question. We received an email that said we have training for those who are on the council for, is it the land use stuff? You know anything about that? And then there was a thing that sent out a password for the county. Is that tied with that training or what? It was from Lauren Ryan.
I think they're two different things. I got an email, something from Double T, Birch.
Password is IT.
The password is IT.
Are we supposed to be doing those trainings, or is that just full-time
There
employees?
is, and I should have put it on here. There's a meeting that they ask us to go to. I asked her to put it on our iPads. Let me
Training
look.
requirements under House Bill 409.
No, I didn't see that.
Utah League of Cities and Towns is offering a free course to satisfy the training requirements of the bill.
They just send it to those that need it.
Well, then I got a lot of emails coming. 'Cause I need a lot of training.
Sorry, no.
That is free training they offer.
But is it required? It says it's required.
It's required. The 409 for council members and.
For the planning commission specifically, there's land use pieces.
That's why.
Oh.
You got it.
You must still be on planning
Probably
commission.
be good for whoever's involved with the land use to be aware of the training.
We'll look before you go. To the training, that is.
Okay.
It's a digital online training. It's a course that's prepped by USU Extension and a League of Cities and Towns, and somebody else I forgot.
When's that have to be done by?
Once a year.
Yes, we did.
Oh, so I got till next year.
Yesterday.
And see if it's a good training, then I'll get back with you. But I haven't started reviewing that yet.
Well, I'm sure you're going to come back and tell me it's good, so just so I'll do it, right?
HB 409 required 4 hours per year for planning commissioners.
And so it looks like a good training. I've had an overview, but haven't watched it.
I believe.
So then that has no tie-in with what came from the county as far as passwords?
That's
Okay.
IT training.
That's IT. And it doesn't tie in either to, I forgot to mention the general plan workshop. It's
June
Monday,
7th.
June 7th. I asked Lauren to put that on your iPads.
There's two meetings. There's a June 1st meeting that's the entire public is invited to. And the June 7th meeting is going to be specific to some topics. So stakeholder groups.
I haven't seen anything on the June 1st. It's
Posted. We'll make sure you're aware of that.
well, I didn't ask for it, but I was just asking. So.
If you would send that out to us, that would be great.
Yep, we'll make sure that's in your inboxes.
Yeah, the statute applies to planning commission, that's why the others aren't getting it, where I think you're the designate, you took over for Councilman White.
But I'm willing to share the training with the others.
And
So.
it won't hurt to have
Yeah.
that.
If I'm miserable, I want them that way too.
Oh, no, it's one of those trains that's exciting and they have balloons and whistles and everything.
Yes, like that video today, I was enthralled, so.
Well, I went through it 13 times. No worries.
And he survived, and he's
I
okay.
survived.
The other one you mentioned is from Sophos. If you see an email from Sophos, that's an IT security contractor we work with. So if you see that training one from Sophos, that's good training that our IT department is sending out about how to avoid getting hacked.
Yeah, okay.
Tina, did you get those Apple cards, by the way?
Not me. Yeah, I don't know. That was weird because they didn't even use my email. They just made it look like it came from me and it didn't.
yeah.
And they wanted you to reply to this other email that wasn't even mine. So good catch, Nolan and Dave. So that was,
I figured it was
I complain about them all.
yeah, it was bogus. So the only thing that I have is just to thank you, council members and staff. I really enjoy working with you, and I'm privileged to get to work with you and appreciate you all and all you do for the county. So thank you very much. So with that, seeing no other items for business, we will adjourn.